Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What you saying, brother Rash in the house?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. What more can I say?
Good stuff, man. Good stuff, good stuff. I can see brother JK International is on the call as well.
Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Wa alaikum assalam. Yeah. I know. Okay, I could hear you. Are you still there, JK?
I'm here, but it seems to be calling. I can hear you guys.
Yeah, you need to accept
Strange.
you need to accept the fact that you're being called.
I'm calling you. 1 minute.
Yeah,
Let me try again.
Yeah, we calling you, bro. You're already talking to me.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I think it's working now. I think it's working.
I think that the instructions were that you'll get a call and you answer it. You know what I'm saying?
it's all new to me. Even though the telephone's been around for a while, but yeah, I don't know what it is, but I can hear you guys clearly now.
No, that's good, man. To be honest with you, it was strange because I started getting a call as well, and that's silly because I'm the one who should be initiating the call. But anyway, it is what it is. We should be getting brother Imi on, but to be honest with you, he's probably not that tech savvy, and if some of you got confused, then I don't think he's got a chance. But we'll wait until well, we won't wait. We'll continue with the show, inshallah ta'ala, and if the brother joins, then that's great. So what I want to do, brothers, is I want to sort of get your input on addressing issues, maybe at a weekly level, because a lot's happening in the world right now, a lot's happening with Muslims and the Ummah right now. So I think I want to start going ahead with maybe doing a weekly show, just getting your thoughts and stuff on the events of the previous week. So without taking any more time on the intro, let's go into it. And the first thing I think which is imperative for us to speak about is something which is linked to Jerusalem, is linked to Palestine, and it's the issue about the end of 12-year reign of Bibi, aka Netanyahu, and now we see that he's been replaced by someone who people may actually say is probably worse than Netanyahu. But what are your thoughts on these issues, brothers? Is this something which is now a turning point? Is this going to be something which is going to benefit the Ummah, or is this something which is going to take things down a different route? What do you think?
Before this happened, obviously Naftali Bennett people were speaking about him being the next PM, and saying, like you said, saying that he's going to be worse than Netanyahu because of his very far right, ultra far right views. But so I looked at it with skepticism. I was like, what does this actually mean? But if you look at the politics of it, it's not that simple. So Bennett will be the prime minister for 2 years, but he's part of a coalition government. So that's his party has only won around 6 seats, but actually there's other parties. The centrist party has actually got 17 seats. Yair Lapid, I think, something like that. Yash Lapid. So actually, he doesn't have that much power. He will have to compromise. And in fact, him going into coalition with this centrist and leftist parties in itself has been viewed by like the supporters of the far right and supporters of Netanyahu. They view it as treachery. That how can he go into coalition with people that are so ideologically different to him? But I think overall, I think we'll have to see what happens. But I think what it will do, it will mean that this guy, Bennett and others, will have to probably come to some sort of agreement, as coalitions usually do, because they can't kind of have it all their own way. They have to come to certain agreements. And that could be worse for Palestine because they may push for the settling of Palestine through this two-state solution. But time will tell.
Okay, I mean, I got my thoughts, but I'm going to get your thoughts first as well, Rash and Brother Amy as well. So, Rash, what anything to add on what Brother JK said?
Yeah, so just to add, I think what it is naturally because of what has been happening in these last 12 years while Netanyahu's been there. Obviously the numerous bombing campaigns on Gaza and all of the apartheid and stuff that's happening in Al-Quds. I think naturally people probably look at any change as potentially an opportunity. And especially from an ummah, from Muslims' point of view, we see this non-stop, every few years, more and more of our brothers and sisters suffering. So any kind of change there, especially obviously this, he's been in charge for 12 years, people might naturally want to look at it from a positive point of view. I don't think anybody necessarily is, because I think everybody can see through it, but it's just that bit of hope, isn't it? That, what if something happens that means less Muslim blood is spilt, rather than anybody thinking that it's going to solve the problem as such. So I think, some people, do you see what I mean? So it's not a case, I don't think, I certainly haven't spoken to any Muslims who have gone, oh, okay, this is like a really good thing or anything like that. I think they all know, or most people know, like the rhetoric and the things that, not the rhetoric, but basically what this new Prime Minister has said, as well as, some of the other people as well, that woman whose image has been up on Facebook lots of times, some of the despicable things she said about Muslim children. She's going to be Interior Minister. I forgot her name now. Yeah, so everybody knows that this is not going to solve the problem as such. I think people are just thinking, well, if the party's weaker, and if there's there's an Arab Muslim party as well, isn't there? Or sorry, I say party, but a number of members there. So people are just hoping that if there's any change, could it just be any benefit? So rather than the word solution, is there any benefit there? But generally speaking, though, I think JK made the key point. I think the issue is quite dangerous, because what it could do is, we know, and I think most people should be aware, that what the US want is some degree of settlement here on the basis of a two-state solution. And Muslims have to be much more politically clued up about the fact that, what does a two-state solution mean? I won't give it all now, because I think it's something we can discuss. But yeah, Muslims need to be aware of what two-state solution means and the reasons why they can't accept it.
Yeah. Brother Imi, I can see you on mute. You want to unmute yourself and just give us some thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts is obviously, like the brothers have said, that the leadership will be split 2 years each by the right wing, and this guy is more right wing than Netanyahu, and he wants to Judaize the Al-Quds, meaning that he wants the Al-Quds to be Jewish rather than Muslims. So because the two-state solution under this guy would be impossible, because in the past he said that he said some really nasty things about Palestinians and Arabs, but then again, the other guy who's going to come in after his leadership after 2 years, he's centrist and leftist, and
that's right.
So obviously they're going to be different to what this guy's stance is. So, and at the same time, there's the Arab and Islamist party within the Knesset who voted for this coalition as well. So I don't. So maybe my take on this is that they're going to go full throttle, hardcore settlement, Al-Quds issue, make it huge as possible. Then after 2 years, have some sort of settlement. Who knows? It's a difficult one to call, because if you look at the Israeli society, they're very split at the moment. There's a lot of infighting and disagreement. So one of the main things that this guy has said is that he wants to unify the Israeli society.
But you know what you're describing there, Amy? I think that's already happened. In my personal opinion, I think that the deal of the century was something which was designed to paint a picture for the Palestinians that, look, the countries that you may have thought they're going to come to your rescue, they've abandoned you. Now parts of West Bank are being taken. There's talk about a one-state solution. So basically, you're not going to get anything. Jerusalem's being made the capital. The Golan Heights is being given to the illegal state of Israel. So it's one of those that already, in a way, they don't need to scare the Palestinians any more than they already have. So when you have Biden come on the scene and he's now promoting the two-state solution, this is something which I think you do make a good point. The fact that the timing of this guy doing 2 years first and then that other guy, it does sound as if like this guy can wreck it and that guy can fix it. You know, but the thing is I personally think that we know that the whole project, the whole Israeli project, it's a Western European initially. It's a European project, and we see that obviously after the British left, the Americans took over and supporting maybe the main supporters. And I think that if they were dealing with any other people other than the Yahud, right, maybe they would have probably got closer to where they need to. But they're dealing with the people who, you know, who even Musa alayhi salam got fed up with. So at the end of the day, what we're seeing here is that there's so much differences in their society where even if they want to push it one way, you'll have people do the opposite on the ground. Okay, then once in a while, America has to bring them back in line, and it feels like it feels like they're at a stage where they want to do something, and there's problems now. For example, they've brought this guy on the scene. Now, this guy, as you guys have said, this guy has a checkered history. I mean, not just what, you know, a lot of people are talking about what he has said, but actually what he's done in the past. In 1972, he was a commander of a force of a certain unit which bombed a UN shelter, killing hundreds of innocent people, and a lot of them were actually children. He blatantly said that he's killed Arabs and he doesn't see any problem with it. And on top of that, he's also said that he will never accept, and he's totally against a Palestinian state. And if one was set, then it would take them back 200 years. Now, how do you explain all of this now? How is this guy actually going to be the guy who's going to bring about the American plan? You know, it's like it's already doomed to fail. Those are what do you guys? Oh, another thing I want to just post to you guys from a Muslim point of view, right? We know JK and Russia have both raised the point about what the dangers are. The dangers are the two-state. Fair enough. But if this guy is so anti-two-state, isn't he a blessing for the Muslims rather than someone who's going to come along and try to sell it?
What do you know what it is? You know, like I actually think that America is somewhat concerned about the belligerence of Israel, because if you think about it, Israel being there was supposed to be like that, you know, like they say, the aircraft carrier that is causing fitna and fasad in the region and causing disunity. If Israel's belligerence that we've seen recently actually results in the unification of Muslims, then it's not serving its purpose, because its purpose is to cause disunity and fitna. It's not, its purpose isn't to unite the Muslims. All of a sudden, it being so, you know, like brazen and belligerent towards Muslims is actually causing Muslims to unite on recognizing that, you know, the only solution is to get rid of them. Whereas previously there was a bit more of a, you know what, maybe some kind of peaceful settlement is possible. Whereas I think that's what concerns America, and that's why I think Israel's lifespan in terms of them taking all of it like they want, that I don't think America will allow that personally, and that's my opinion.
To be fair, I agree with the fact that, like you said, they don't like the belligerence of Israel, and even though they control some of its policies, they don't control all of the actions of Israel, and they do have to kind of step in. And I think, for me, though, I think their objective here initially was to unseat Netanyahu. They realized that Netanyahu, nothing's going to be achieved. So they wanted to unseat him, and it was very clear from the onset of all that was happening in Gaza and Palestine and Al-Quds that one of the objectives behind this, or Netanyahu's objective, was to gain a bit of popularity, but it actually backfired because he was unable to protect Israel, or what we call Israel. He was unable to stop the Hamas from firing, and it was a defeat for Israel, considering the power and might they have compared to the militia of Hamas and other factions. So I think the main thing here is that they've unseated Netanyahu. It doesn't mean that what they've got now is ideal, but it does mean that they don't have someone in place. Even though he was in a coalition government as well, his last reign was with Benny Gantz, who was a coalition. But with this new coalition, actually, there's 8 parties. It's a very, as Imran was saying, that it's very divisive. There's lots of different opinions in Israel, and they are not united. They all have different views on what the solution is.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think the other guy's going to get a chance after 2 years. I don't think this is going to last 2 years.
What's going to happen in the next 2 years?
Yeah, and that's why Netanyahu isn't giving up. He's still there. He's still going, I'm going to be back.
Bro, he's going to be laughing because Imi.
Yeah, but I think obviously we know the reason why the US supports Israel, because it's considered as a military base in the heart of the Muslim world, right? So which you could launch attacks on spy upon. Also, the evangelical Christians who support Israel, they've got their own agenda in terms of they want to speed up the coming of
Jesus,
of Christ, of Jesus, exactly. So that's the reason why the evangelicals support Israel. They still haven't forgotten that whose hands of blood of Christ on their hands, But eventually, when according to them, when Christ does come, he'll have to deal with the Yehud as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's not like it's not like the case of that. Yeah, it's full support of Israel. They've got their own agendas, but with this right wing guy coming in, it's very difficult to turn the public opinion, because Israeli society is getting very, very more ultra nationalist and right wing. Yeah.
What do you think the fact that this is the first religious Jew to be prime minister?
That's in itself is.
Because they've all been secular before, and they've all been secular. This guy's the first religious Jew.
Yeah, he wears the hat, innit? The kippah.
Yeah, and that's a significant that's a significant thing as well, isn't it? Because for someone to be a religious prime minister, they have to go by their text, isn't it? Which means that that's their land, which is promised to them by God, and which makes it even more difficult for some sort of solution to come in place.
Because it gives it significance. Their argument gains a bit more significance. It doesn't become just political. It's like a religious argument, and it kind of emboldens the Jews and those who are basically Zionist Jews who wants Israel.
Yeah. But the question is, what does America want from Israel? Does America itself want a 2-state solution, or is it happy with what Israel is doing?
America, I mean, it goes back to the point that I think it was Rashid made earlier, the fact that anything that speeds up the emotion in the ummah and brings them closer to each other is something which they want to avoid. So if, for example, now they were able to bring about a situation where the Arab countries recognize Israel, for example, so this base that you mentioned, Amy, this base is no longer a illegitimate base. It's now a base which is recognized by everyone. And now just say the Palestinians have some sort of a homeland, then the issue is being settled, but secondly also the ammunition that a lot of the people who use the dawah carriers who stir up the emotion of the Muslims by telling them about our responsibilities to this land, that goes out the window. So I think the fact that the last thing they would want is even more agitation, and that's what they were getting under the deal of the century. And I personally think, like I said, I think that the way they played it is brilliant from their point of view. The fact that Biden's not gone back on anything that Trump changed, but he's going to try to show that this is your last chance. And I'll tell you something now, if it was probably any other people, they would probably take it. But you know what? I can hand on heart say here that, you know what, the Muslims of Palestine will never, ever accept whatever they push forward, even if there's elements from within them who are ready to sell their souls en masse. The people will never accept it. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, because
even just
go on.
Sorry, go on. You guys go.
No, go for it.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to say, you know, a good little side note, and especially when you speak to non-Muslims or anybody, you know, secular and stuff, that you should highlight, you know, the fact that the West always talk about Israel being this kind of model democracy in the region. And the West always talk about, you know, anybody who's an extremist is someone who wants like a religious state, or who calls for a religious state of some sort, or basically Islam wants Islam as a state. Whereas at the same time, they're the ones that are supporting Israel, who want a Jewish state. So that's the biggest hypocrisy, isn't it? That
Madness,
you know,
madness.
in a world when they're so against, they want to promote democracy, want to promote secularism, they're willing to fund endlessly this nation who is completely against that, who is a what's it called, a religious theocratic state. So it just highlights their hypocrisy, and anybody who tries to then promote, you know, their worldview exposes it completely. I would mention that.
Yeah, I think also adding on to Marty's point is that the Muslims, alhamdulillah, they still preserved the Islamic character of the issue of Palestine, Al-Quds, and they haven't really made it a nationalist one. Otherwise, if they would have, then the Zionists would have singled out the Palestinians and they would have uprooted them from their homes already. It wouldn't be much worse as it is at the moment. So the fact that the Palestinians are not on their own, the Muslim Ummah has still made it an Islamic issue, it says a lot. And the other thing is that we have to remember that it was the Europeans who settled, who made the Jews settle in Israel by giving them the land of Palestine. And if you look at Britain, its role, what it did in North America, how it removed or destroyed the indigenous people of America, and also of Australia, how they got rid of the Aborigines. If it wasn't for the Islamic character or the Islamic solution that the Muslims want, they would have easily dealt with the Palestinians. If it wasn't just if it wasn't based on Islam. Yeah.
No, exactly, man, exactly. So yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward with Naftali Bennett and his coalition of all sorts. I mean, we'll keep up to date on that one. And one last point I just want to mention on this, as a something to think about, and then we're going to move on to the next segment, is the fact that, you know, everyone knows that Christian Eriksen, he, for example, had a cardiac arrest, I think it was yesterday, whilst playing football. But you know what is a shame is that what's happening in Palestine, the little details of what's still going on in Sheikh Jarrah, the fact that today a Muslim sister was shot dead at a checkpoint. These things are not going to come on the news. They're not going to be broadcasted. And it just goes to show, again, the hypocrisy of this world, certainly the West, who try to promote this, you know, element of human rights and freedoms, that something like a sportsman, you know, who had a cardiac arrest is better news than innocent people being shot dead. But that's just a thought for everyone listening to think about. But okay, I want to move on to the next segment, guys. And I want to talk about, get your thoughts on the murder of 4 members of the same family in Canada over the last few days. It's been about a week now. What are your thoughts on that?
Very sad, isn't it? Like, it's one of those where you can literally think about your own family, and you view them as your own family. You relate to that, as we're here in the UK, you know, second generation. Easily someone could do that to us. So it's very disheartening. And the thing is, you know, fair enough, one person did it, and this guy, I forgot his name now, but the guy, the way the media portrayed him as, you know, like they always do, they portrayed it as though, oh, how can such a guy do it? And this guy was, you know, they don't really portray them as terrorists, just mentally unstable. But the thing is, even though I'm not saying the majority of the Western people agree with what he did, and I'm sure they don't, but there are, you know, there were people that kind of either celebrated it, or did you see that video of someone like videoing another Muslim family and saying, oh, where is this guy when we need him? I'm not sure whether you came across that.
That would be the small minority. I would.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not trying to say that that is the majority, especially Canada, especially they're not, they are quite left leaning population generally. But what it really makes clear to me, the main lesson I took from it really is that, look, we can't view this land, the Western lands, as our home. It isn't our home. We'll always have people that hate us here, and we need to really have a vision for what we want in our life for our families and the future generations, because we won't ever be accepted. I'm not saying that everyone will want to kill us. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that. But will we really be accepted for what we want in terms of obedience to Allah and fulfilling our obligations to Allah? We won't. We will either have the hatred like we have with this guy and the far right, or we will have the liberals on the left who will want us to abandon our deen, but they'll be nice about it, and they'll probably won't try not to cause too much offense, but they'll want us to kind of adopt liberal Western values, which in a sense is just as dangerous.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that the environment and the atmosphere has been set as Muslims being the enemy ever since the war on terror was officially, by Bush and Blair in particular. It's been, they've obviously, because the end of communism, they needed a new scapegoat, a new enemy to unify the people against, and that was obviously Islam. So now you see the media, even the Prime Minister of Canada. We're saying that this left leaning, the society of Canada left leaning, but even the Prime Minister of Canada, even he in the past and recently has made comments about Muslims, negative comments. So this atmosphere is not just in Canada; it's all over the world, where Muslims are being targeted, and it's the Muslims, as if the Muslims are the enemy, because, like I said, the fall of communism, it's only Islam which is the ideology which is left as a threat to the West in particular, and it's the Muslims who are being defined as the enemies. But unfortunately, it's the innocent Muslims, is Muslim full stop, who are being treated being targeted by the the right-wing fascists, racists.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I made a video last week, a few days ago, basically saying that, how they're trying to show how this is like this event is surprising, but the reality is that over the last few years, well, since the war on terror or war on Islam, as Imi mentions, actually what you've seen a dehumanization of Muslims, even to the extent where I remember, because obviously I'm a bit older than you lot. I remember there was a time where, just say it is in Kashmir or certain places where there was like fighters holed up in a mosque or something like that. The enemy army wouldn't actually go. They'd wait for them to come out of the mosque, because the mentality of attacking a mosque or going in there with your shoes on was something which was like, bad, or it wasn't good for propaganda, right? But the reality is, right now they've flattened mosques. So there's been such a huge shift from the fact that now Muslims' lives don't matter, okay, in one way. And the thing is this one individual, he's just brainwashed, right? The reality is that if consistently the movies, the newspapers, the media is portraying an image of Muslims as being the enemy, of Muslims being evil, Muslims being the other, then why should we be surprised when these things happen? What do you think, Rash?
Yeah, it's a good topic, because this is what I did my khutbah on Friday.
Killed it.
Yeah, so I've got a few bits I'll mention. So firstly, the key thing is, how you did your video about people being surprised. I think people were a little bit surprised because, like you say, it was in a Western type nation. So, like, it feels closer to home, doesn't it? When a bomb goes off in Afghanistan or Pakistan or Syria, it's sad, but we come to expect it now because it's happening all of the time. When something happens, like in Canada, or if it happens here in the UK, there's the element of, we think we have this kind of security because we live in these lands, but actually it's that same security that sometimes makes many Muslims not act. We've got that comfort. you know, we think, oh, okay, it's other people suffering around the world. Yeah, we give some charity. Yeah, we try to do this, that, and the other. We try to do the best we can. But what we do is, because we've got that security, we haven't got worried about bombs dropping on us. We don't act. We don't actually do anything to help. So I think that's why some people were a bit surprised, because it was a bit close to home. But there's actually a few good little points. I'll try and keep them short. There's the idea of radicalization is one topic to talk about. Is that, you know, they talk about, when they say radicalization, they say that, oh, Muslim radicalization, in terms of Muslims going out and doing these acts and terrorist acts and stuff based on an idea. But actually, the whole media, be it the foreign policy and the media itself, social media, or just news and stuff, is what is radicalized the right wing, because them continuously showing Islam and Muslims as the other makes actually radicalizes them. So here's this Justin Trudeau coming forward and going, oh, look, you know, these are our citizens, we want to protect them, we're with them. But it's you and your media that are alienating Muslims, dehumanizing Muslims. Therefore, you are to blame. So you can't, on the one hand, go, oh, we're sad that our foreign policy, which is killing Muslims elsewhere, has come home to roost, as they say. You know, just that now it's happening here. You can't suddenly be, you know, go on the defensive. Whereas it's your policies, your media and your foreign policy, which are linked, by the way. You know, some people still are a bit naive to the fact that media is somehow just reporting on news. I think more people are starting to become aware of the fact that media is just another propaganda tool, and whatever the elites and the people in power carry in terms of an idea and ideology is what the media pushes. So I think those things are quite important. And just a last little point is that, imagine the level of hatred someone has to have, to run an innocent family over. Not even, you know, how did he even know they're Muslim other than just their dress?
Crazy, man.
So exactly. So imagine the level of hatred that has to be inside someone for them to do that, because most people wouldn't even do that to animals, let alone human beings. So what we're saying is, this is the radicalization that these Western nations are causing of their own citizens. And it's not even by design. It's like, that's their policy. Foreign policy means they have to dehumanize Muslims in order for people to accept their foreign policy. But then when their foreign policy comes home and affects locally, then that causes some degree of issue for them. So there's lots of topics.
Would you not say, though, that, just sort of thinking out loud, right? That, you know, this, because they can't be oblivious to the fact that people are being radicalized, right? It's because they understand that they monitor the internet, bro. They'll monitor. They'll know what views are out there. So
that bit is by design as well. Remember that there's evidence of these institutes in America, like, you know, even over here, like the Henry Jackson Society and stuff like that, who fund right wing. So I'm not saying that bit's that's by design.
No, that's cool. But that's right. So what I'm trying to add to that is the fact that, do you not think that it does serve a purpose, and what that purpose would serve is, you know, for the people who are just, say, forming these ideas of Islam and Muslims, right? They don't want to show Islam and Muslims in a good light anyway, because the fact that, you know, they live in a miserable life in their lands anyway. They don't want to give them an alternative of Islam for them to turn to, right? And especially if the state's established in the future, they want to build a picture already, that one which is anti-Islam. And secondly, you know, if you think about the if you might have seen the picture where the coffins of the Muslim family, they were draped in the Canadian flag. That also there's an element that what these type of attacks and people who are, you know, anti-Islamic and if people abusing Muslims, what it does do is it raises the question about, you know, integration, i.e. the fact that, you know, if Muslims had certain ideas, then they shouldn't have these problems, because the problems that these people carry is the fact that they don't socialize, or they don't integrate, and they wear hijab, and, you know, so if they were to move away from these things, then automatically they would become more accepted within the wider society. So in one way, if you think about it, it does drive a certain agenda, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Just to clarify though, but what it is there's that element of that yes, they want to alienate Muslims and Islam from the masses, but they equally know that Muslims live within their communities and people interact with Muslims, so they have to do it in a way where they alienate the ideas, and then they alienate the Muslims such that a Muslim would to stay in that society, for that Muslim to go, you know what, these are the ideas I carry. They then have to be shy about some of the correct Islamic ideas and support some of the incorrect non-Islamic ideas in order to
That's what I'm saying.
integrate into that society. So
Yeah.
yeah, in that respect, that's one of the purposes it serves.
But
Yeah,
I think the other thing is it's all about politics of fear. So like you're saying
Yeah.
that, you know, these are the Islamophobia, if you want to call it that, the hate speech that's openly allowed, is to instill fear within the Muslims that, look, if we don't integrate or partake, then the right wing are going to come into power and it's going to make life difficult for us. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's an issue which, or a tactic which has worked for the West for many centuries. This politics of fear. So the Muslims, even when you speak to the Muslims, they say that, look, for us to make it easier for ourselves, safer, better for ourselves, we need to integrate, work within the system, and get involved in politics in order to improve our situation. So these things are allowed on purpose, and we know that these hate speeches and Islamophobia is a very big industry. It's worth millions, if not billions, of dollars. Yeah, and it's linked to think tanks, in particular in the West, in America, and in Britain and France. So these thoughts out there, they are done on purpose, like you're saying, to convince the masses that Islam is the enemy, and also to create this politics of fear, so that the masses, that they realize that, hold on, Islam and the Muslims are the enemy, and they need treating as such.
The other thing it really does is it basically absolves whole governments of the crimes they commit, because it makes the enemy the far right and the fascists. And the thing is, they are a problem. No one wants fascists or far right, but actually they aren't the ones that are bombing our lands and essentially trying to erase Islam and make our land secular. It's the governments that you wouldn't really call far right, but actually their policies are far worse. And what it does is, you have Justin Trudeau coming out and showing solidarity with the Muslims, and he even called out this guy as a terrorist. He said that he's a terrorist, and that's why I've always been a bit skeptical of this whole point of Islamophobia. My point is that the problem isn't Islamophobia. The problem is Western liberalism, actually, and our target should be that, rather than trying to reduce or remove Islamophobia, because Islamophobia is restricted to the far right, or those who have this kind of hatred for Islam in a physical sense, where they're actually crying out attacks against Muslims. But as you said, that's just a tiny minority of people. And if we make that our call and our cause, that we need to target the far right and that's our enemy, then actually we're absolving the actual criminals of the crimes they commit against the Muslims.
Yeah, no, that's bang on. Because I'm just going to make a quick point, Rash, that just adding on to what you guys are saying, that far right, for example, they're only bothered about people in their land, right? But the real criminals are the ones who are ideological, who actually want their ideology to prevail, who want to spread their filth in the Muslim lands. And in order to do this, nothing's off the table, whether it's committing genocide or whatever. So who's more of a threat?
Okay.
Yeah,
it's also, we just got to, we got to be a bit careful, because sometimes what we can do is, and I'm sure we all heard this, haven't we, where when like a Muslim does something, obviously he says terrorist, and as soon as a non-Muslim does something, the Muslims start going, oh, why isn't this guy being called a terrorist as well? But then now they do call them terrorists. Have we won now all of a sudden just because both are called terrorists? We've got to this level of expectation that that's some kind of a victory, when it isn't, because we know that even the word terrorism itself, is is designed by them and has an agenda behind it. So it's difficult because you want to use the word because it signifies, you know, the fact that there's terror being put in people, but they've agenda driven all of these terminologies so much, even like JK saying Islamophobia, you end up not wanting to use their terminologies because you realize, you know, by using them, you're actually helping them with their agenda, if that makes sense.
Bro, even that Trudeau came on, he said, no one can deny now that there is Islamophobia. It's like, what the hell, you know what I mean? It's like, what is the Muslims are going to like start, you know, blowing off some pataki and like fireworks and stuff. Like, yeah, Trudeau's now saying there is Islamophobia. It's obviously, like you're saying, it's all a trick, and we should not use their language, but also, you know, we shouldn't feel like we've achieved something just because they acknowledge that what this guy's done is a sort of terror attack. So now banging points, brothers, all round, man. And there's no other issue that occurred in the last week or so which I want to speak about. I think these two are the main ones, and what I plan to do, if you guys are game, is to maybe do these once a week just to cover any sort of events that I've kicked off in the last week or so. I think it can be beneficial for. I mean, like, just speaking to you guys, it's benefited me anyway, and I'm sure the people listening to this and the people who will listen to this will also benefit as well. So, is any final things you guys want to talk about? Whether it's your concern about Boris Johnson moving forward, the Day of Freedom, or anything else, feel free to. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes each to add anything else you want to do, or you can call it an end.
The only other sorry, go on, Eamon.
Yeah. So the G7 summit that took place, I think there were quite significant issues there in terms of obviously Biden's coming after Trump. Trump was gung ho, breaking up alliances, whereas Biden's coming, trying to build bridges again, especially with Europe. And one of his key speeches was against China. How to curb China, and they're thinking of setting up an alternative to the Belt and Road initiative, which China has. But we have to remember that the colonialists, they were actually in the past, they were physically occupying the lands in wherever they went. But now with this new initiative, it will be a case of pretending to be helping the developing world, whereas in fact it's still colonialism, but with a smile.
I think that's going to be a really good one. I mean, we could probably go into more detail next week with that one, because because they're even talking about how NATO now should be geared towards China. And if anyone knows anything about NATO, you know, even the last 4 years of Trump's era, there's a lot of leaders are saying, look, is there even a point to have this now? So they're always renewing the purposes for that. So we could probably go in a bit more depth, I think, for that next week, inshallah. So it'd be good to have you on if you're free next week. Any other comments from you guys, from JK, Rash?
The only other thing I saw in the news the other day, but we could talk about it maybe next week, is I don't know whether you guys heard that Saudi Arabia, they've basically banned, or they've removed the rule around a woman requiring a mahram to come to Hajj. So why that's quite important is that we've always known that's a requirement.
No, it's not just about Hajj. It's not just about Hajj case. It's the fact that women can now live by themselves without permission of mahram.
Exactly, and that's the thing, that every little bit of it. So a few years ago, was it a year ago or so, they allowed women to drive, and it sounds like we're questioning it, but the thing is, there's an underlying problem that they're trying, or there's an underlying issue that they're trying to erase, which is around the mahram rules and the guardianship rules, which are remnants of the social system of Islam, and it kind of aligns with the vision they have for Saudi Arabia to secularize it and make it a bit more tourist friendly and all of this. And I think it's worth discussing some of the dangers of this issue.
Yeah, 100%, man. I would think so. I mean, even the fact that they are, from what I read, you guys might correct me, is that they're actually going to be banning foreigners from foreigners. Even the word foreigners sounds strange, but they're going to ban foreigners from making Hajj. But this is not going to affect people going for entertainment with the visas. So it just goes to show what, and even there's also the issue to do with the adhan, that they've turned the speakers down.
True.
So you know, they are more than happy to have. I can't even remember her name, man. What's that artist? The one who like does a
Nicki
lot
Minaj.
of Nicki Minaj. Yeah. So they were more than welcome to bring her on to spot her rubbish on high sound, but they got a problem with the adhan. But anyway, yeah, that's another good one as well, man. We can speak about that next week as well. And Rash, do you have any final comments, or are you going to give me another topic as well?
No, I won't. No, I think that those two topics. I think more stuff will come out on the G7 stuff, because obviously, there was actually, even in addition to the G7, there was the meeting with Erdogan as well, wasn't there, on Monday? So again, stuff for next
with
week,
Biden,
maybe.
with Biden,
yeah. So again, not a lot of what was discussed hasn't yet fully filtered out. So once that comes out over the course of this week, I think those would be good things to speak about next week.
Yeah, brilliant, man. No, brilliant. So,
guys, I just want to, before we finish, I just want to correct myself. When I said about the Prime Minister of Canada, it was the former Canada, Stephen Harper, his name was. He came out with the anti-Islamic.
That's what I was thinking. I've not heard this guy, but the thing is, you see, is this, like, for example, what's his name, man?
Justin Trudeau.
Trudeau, yeah. The thing is he might not have to say anything which is like clearly anti-Islamic. The fact that if he's talking about Muslims should be like this and that, that is in itself could be anti-Islamic if he's talking about more integration. But yeah, it's the previous guy who was that guy was like an open racist.
Yeah,
he's similar to, you know, there's an Australian Prime Minister. You guys might know about that. Do you remember his name? That guy was openly like racist as well. But it is what it is, and you got to think about it, man. You got to think about New Zealand, bloody Canada, bloody Australia. They're all Europeans. You know, if you really think about it, all, you know, especially Australia, they're all convicts. But anyway, let's not go into that stuff. So let's leave it at that, brothers. Jazakallah khair for not listening, but for joining, and your thoughts are much appreciated. What I will do is I will whack this on YouTube, on Path to Revival YouTube channel, so you know, people can watch it there and share it with family and friends. So yeah, man, Jazakallah, guys.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Take it easy, guys.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.